God, you come to us in so many ways. In neighbor and in friend. In Father and in Spirit and in Son. We ask that you stir in us listening ears and open hearts, that we may receive whatever you have for us today. In Christ's name. Amen. Amen. What kind of things do you get insurance policies for? Car, life, health, home. What else?
Your stuff.
Your stuff. What else? Retirement. Okay, what else? Disability. Good. What else?
Your Harleys.
Heck yeah. Your Harley. All right, what else? Travel insurance. Yeah, absolutely you do. We purchase insurance generally because if we lose something, we want somebody to pay for what we lost. Right? I mean, that's sort of why we do it. So it's gambling. Right? I mean, that's what we're doing. Right? We're just tossing it out there, and somebody's going to make money. And it probably ain't us. Right? I mean, that's why there's these giant firms that make lots and lots of money. There is one in particular, Lloyd's of London, that I'd like to talk about just for a little bit. Can you show the first one? Troy Polamalu's hair. $1 million. Just on his hair. Head and Shoulders took it out, but I mean, just for Troy's hair, $1 million. All right, next one. Who's that? Rod Stewart. $15.5 million on his voice. Not on the cool hair. $15.5 million on a voice. All right, so if Rod Stewart had 15.5, what do you think about Dylan? Priceless. $31.2 million on Bob Dylan's voice. How about the next one? Only matched by the boss with $31.2 million as well. There's one more. There's one more that I'm willing to show. Right? Because there's lots of other ones that I shouldn't show. Anyway, last one. And this is a really nice shot of her. Tina Turner's legs. Cropped on purpose. Cropped on purpose. $3.2 million, but she actually has them insured with each. So it's $1.6 million for each leg. Insurance. It's something that you won't necessarily get the money for. We're pretty pleased when we have insurance and something does happen. But otherwise, paying our quarterly statements never really does pay out in the long run. And at the bottom of this, ultimately we're scared. That's what insurance companies have going for them. That people are going to be scared of losing something. The reading from Romans isn't about insurance at all. If anything, it's about assurance. But even assurance is really hard to grasp in a real sort of way. But there can be real life models of it. And so Mel met a person who lives with assurance. I have no idea if he has any insurance, but you want to come tell that story? She met him a few weeks ago.
Morning.
Turn the mic on.
Why don't you use this one probably, actually, if you don't mind.
Becky Rogers and I participated in the Set to My Walk, which was 17 miles from Madison to Stoughton. And we had agreed to do the walk, had been training for many months, but personally I hadn't walked more than 6 miles at a time, so I was kind of freaking out about it. Our family also had a nasty flu bug the week before, so I was still feeling dehydrated and more out of it as usual. As we gathered before the walk, putting on our sunscreen and making sure we had snacks and all our water bottles, we were waiting to use the porta pots. And we noticed a gentleman in line, and he was wearing, he was wearing tan pants and an old flannel shirt and a worn hat and like brown shoes. And he looked to be over 60, but I didn't really know how old. We said good morning, and I asked if he'd done the walk before. And he said 22 times. And I thought, what? I was kind of speechless. And because he certainly was no elite athlete in my book, or any kind of athlete probably at all. Once we were several miles into the walk, Beth and I found ourselves walking next to the same gentleman. And I just couldn't stand it. I had to know more about these 22 times. And he said he'd started at the encouragement of a lady friend of his that he knew from a senior singles group. But there was really no one else left now to walk with him. But he still doesn't. And I asked him his age, 76, he replied. And he'd only missed 1 year of the walk, the year he had heart surgery. But that was a few years ago. And his name was Don. It was a beautiful day, and we commented on how lucky we were that he had probably walked in worse conditions. And for sure that was true. He told us about the year it was so hot that he did have to take a break and sit in the shade for a while. And about years of cold and rain. I didn't ask it, but I got the impression that he always finished. He explained how he wore an old flannel shirt that had holes in the sleeves, so if he got hot and took it off, he was kind of forgetful, and he may leave it somewhere, but it wouldn't matter because it was an old shirt. And in his breast pocket were papers and pens, and it just seemed like he had everything he needed right there with him. Don mentioned he was from Barrington, Illinois, and he did drive. And it was clear he was not walking the race with anyone else he knew. So I asked, how did he get to Stoughton from Illinois? It's over 100 miles. Well, he said, the walk is on Saturday morning. Well, I left my front door yesterday morning, and I walked to the gas station in town. And someone there gave me a ride to this other town where there was a gas station. And then this went on and on. And he mentioned lots of little towns, but I was just kind of speechless at that point, and I don't remember them. And then he said, a friend in Stoughton said I could sleep upstairs above his bookstore last night. But before I went to bed, I went to a bar next door. There was really nothing going on. There were these people, they wanted to talk, so I talked to them. And then they said if I meet them at that bar today at 3:30, they'll take me back to Barrington. One year, Don didn't have a place to stay the night before the walk. So he sat on a pile of firewood in front of a gas station in Stoughton for half the night, and he decided that just wasn't very comfortable. But he realized he could probably sleep inside a porta pot. And so he got in here, and he got up the next morning, took the shuttle to Madison, and did the walk. Several times during the walk that day, we would see Don talking with other walkers and volunteers, and many times people would check in to make sure he was okay, us included, and he just kept moving. He knew every curve, how far it was to the next water. We would be like, oh, how much longer is it? He's like, well, up there, it's going to be like, there's going to be water, and then we're like, okay, thanks. One time, a young runner was passing Don, because at some point all the runners caught up with us. Shocking, I know. And here's this young guy moving along, and their time, I mean, this is kind of serious, these runners. Like, they let runners come. Okay. This young guy runs up beside Don, and he looks over to Don, and he says, he keeps going. It was so cute. And I thought, he didn't have to do that. He could have just kept on going. So many people got to hear his story. We would see him once on the side of the road just talking to some people. Obviously, he didn't know them. And I could hear the people saying, but how are you going to get home? So somehow, the story was coming out. He was not I don't think he would have shared any of it had we not asked. He wasn't that kind of person, that was. during our conversations, Don mentioned the fact that he believed people were generally good and helped each other out. And the questions in my head just kept swirling. How could he trust like that? But what if something happened? I had worried about this walk for months, and especially the few days before, the morning of, and he had no plan at all. And no worries. And he seemed like a really happy guy. And I also thought, I'm so glad I did this walk, because if I had bailed, I would never have had that chance to meet him. I felt like it was kind of meant to be.
Thanks. So Mel shared that story with me as when she got home, and I was like, wow, I have this thing called life assurance that's coming up, and you just sort of preached it, and so I want you to come and share that, and so thank you very, very much. Clearly, Don is sort of an odd duck, right? I mean, seriously, right? I know, we can talk to anybody, so we gotta take that off to a different side. Not necessarily the way all of us would roll. Most of us would figure out at least some way to get up to Stoughton, or some way to get back that was guaranteed. But then there was this pastor, and his name was Paul. And he wrote a letter to a church in Rome, and he made it clear that Christians are supposed to walk to a different drummer. Christians don't typically follow conventional wisdom, Paul says. Paul makes it clear that positive thinking does not overcome fear. In fact, the only thing that overcomes fear, he says, is love. It's not insurance, but it's assurance that we are loved by God, that we can get into any situation and not be worried. We aren't promised protection from the storms, but peace in it all. It isn't an excuse to be lazy, but to become more loving. We're invited to live in the hope that Jesus shares with all of us. We come no longer to demand justice, but we begin to distribute joy and justice. These are marks of assurance in Christian living, and they're marks that Don carried with him as he continued on that walk. It's this experience or feeling or a reminder of being in a relationship with someone else. It's an assurance that we are important, that we're loved by somebody, and that we are somebody. It's assurance that we mean something to somebody in this world. And just one makes a difference. This letter that Paul wrote to the Romans is like God's text message. Be assured that you're my child. And it isn't that you are an only child. See, there's this adoption thing that goes on. And God talks about all of us being adopted into one family, and that family has God as our Father. In this community of faith and in joining together as a family, we come to hear better and to understand more clearly and to be transformed fully into God's children, to be heirs or inheritors of all that God has for us. So if you're still thinking that perhaps being Bill Gates or Warren Buffett's heir would be better, Not so sure you've been listening. Father Richard Rohr put it this way: we are all spiritual beings. We just don't know it. It's in being in this family and with family that we begin to experience full life. See, this isn't about going to church. It's about being adopted into a family. It isn't about signing up for a discipleship Bible study. Disciples are made by learning to eat at God's table. It isn't about going to Sunday school. Sunday school is really about learning how to get along with your brothers and sisters in Christ. It isn't about one great day of service. It is about one great day of learning to share your toys. Surely there are reigns and doubts that will come, but there's also assurance. The Spirit promised by Jesus did come and continues to come to those who seek Him first. Your adoption papers have been approved. The question remains, will you take them up and step into a new life? A life that's assured. Let's pray. God, you give us new life. Adopted life in you. We know that you choose us and want us to be part of your family. Give us strength as we call you Father. As we say, like Paul did, what's next, Dad? We trust that you will lead us. And we always hope that you will guide us. Through your Spirit, in your Son, we are your children.